many people have kids? How many of y'all were crazy nuts before you had kids? And when you had kids, you got better, right? It gave you a sense of accountability. So the number one thing you could do to increase your accountability in the business is to recruit somebody that you know. What if you recruit somebody that you know that's better than you would do in the business? What do you think that does for your personal production? It raises it. Joe Miller has beat me every single week I've ever been in the field ever, and he would call me every week and gloat about it. And I would get so angry. I was literally writing like resignation letters to Sean. And then Joe would tell me how much he killed it, and I was like, I'm going to show that fool. You just watch. I'm sending this next week. So my point is, like, recruiting will solve a lot of the problems that you guys experience as producers in the field. It'll give you more accountability. It'll give you something to work harder for. It'll give you somebody to perform for. It'll give you a way to get your mindset just off of yourself and your own problems. Like a lot of times I would be in the field, and if it wasn't going good for me, and it's just me and like a drive-through, I started getting like 100 pounds doing this. And then I was like, you know what, Chick-fil-A, that's chicken. I gained like 50 pounds of Chick-fil-A. That's not health food. But I would just literally be driving around in my sorrow, like going through drive-throughs and stuff, you know? And so maybe that's too much. That's too deep to tell y'all that right up front. But what I realized is if I had a group of agents that I was working with and they called me up on the phone and I was down, it was my responsibility to not be down when I talked to them. And I realized that. When you recruit somebody in the business, you give up the right to be average and ordinary, right? So like if Brandon's on my team and I just got no-showed 6 times, I sold one and they called me when I was 3 blocks away from the house and told me they didn't want any more. I just left. And then I'm getting ready to drive my car to a tree, but Brandon calls, I'm going to have a better attitude. Does that make sense? So let's talk about how to recruit and where that comes from. So warm market recruiting, if you look at any leaderboard in the company, and I mean any leaderboard, you look at Jack's team, you look at Ben's team, you look at Elaine's team, you look at anybody's team, it's all predominantly warm market. If you take the top 25 producers on my team, out of the top 25, 21 of them were people that I knew. And if they weren't people that I knew, they were people that knew the person that recruited them. And the only reason to recruit somebody cold market is so that they can recruit their warm market friends. Why do you think that's so important? Because people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And in this business, the most important part of it is trust. That's it. Like if I recruit Crystal and I don't know Crystal, and within 4 minutes, I'm like, Crystal, you need $1,000 a week for leads. And she's like, I knew this was a scam. And she blocks my phone number because she don't trust me. But if I went to high school with Crystal and my brother dated her sister and now she lives in the same neighborhood as my aunt, none of that's true, but I'm just giving y'all some warm market stuff, right? Now, when Crystal passes the test, she's like, what's next? I'm like, you need $1,000 for leads. She's like, I'm going to find a way to do that. Why? Because she knows that she could trust me. So a lot of the obstacles that you face in recruiting comes from the fact that you're recruiting strangers. Does that make sense? Now, remember when I talked about the accountability portion of the business where when you recruit people, you don't want them to outdo you, so you work harder? They have an accountability too. How many people know when you recruit somebody warm market, they're more likely to do something? Because they don't want to be embarrassed. That's it. So if I'm starting out, what's your first name? Alyssa. Okay. So if Alyssa's getting started in the business, just like when I was getting started in the business, the very first thing I would do is I would pull out my cell phone and I would write down the names of 10 people that I think would actually be good at Family First Life. How many people could do that? I don't say all 1,000 of them. I don't say everybody. Everybody's not going to be good at it. But what I'm looking for is people that I would enjoy working with. Does that make sense? And who would like JP, you want to know how to approach anybody in your warm market? Okay, this is how you do it. So everybody has a list of things that they like about Family First, right? And when you write down a list of people, let's say you wrote down 10 of your friends that you want to expose to Family First, that evokes an emotion when you think about, who's your best friend, Alyssa? Okay, other than him. That's an easy recruit. Who else? Who's your boyfriend's best friend? Caspi. Okay. So if you thought about calling Caspi to talk to him about Family First Life, about getting his insurance license, what's the first thing that comes to your mind about how it's going to feel to call Caspi? Are you nervous? Are you excited? Are you... Okay. So if I'm nervous to call Caspi, if I'm nervous to call JP, the first thing I'm going to tell JP is, JP, I was really nervous to call you about this because I didn't want you to judge me. It's the first thing I say. And then the next thing I say is, out of everything that I like about Family First Life, I would just pick 2 things that I think he would like too. And I'll say, JP, I was really nervous about calling you. I didn't want you to judge me. Here's the thing. I found a way to make some money. I'm really excited about it because the compensation's really great and you can start part-time. I don't expect you to tell me yes or no, but I'd feel guilty if I didn't at least show it to you. I'm going to send you a video. If you like what you see, I'll introduce you to the right people. Ask me a question. Okay, well that, awesome. Well, yeah, no, nobody ever asked that one. Yeah. The video explains all that. But I have no expectation of what you're going to think. But like I said, I feel guilty if you want to watch it. What's it about? It's a video. It's financial services. You can expect it to be a lot of hard work, but people are making good money. You know, whatever it is, like what I try to do is not be, I don't try to verbal vomit over everybody. Does that make sense? All I'm trying to do is be the 30-second commercial and let the tool, the Rogue IMO video, do the heavy lifting. And what I'm thinking about is what I'm doing with JP, my goal is for JP to be able to turn around and do that with people he knows right away. Now, here's something you need to understand. The biggest override you make in the business is on yourself. So in no way, shape, or form does this mean you don't sell and you only recruit. If that's your goal, you make it really, 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 really hard. Who knows what the biggest mistake is and the biggest reason why people don't make it when it comes to recruiting? I'll tell you what it is. It's spending your time with the wrong people. When you're selling at a high level and you're out there working really hard and you don't need the overrides, you will attract the right people. And you won't be afraid to tell the wrong people that it's not a good fit. Right? Like a jockey never won a horse race dragging the horse across the finish line. The horse has got to want to run, right? It's a funny analogy. Right? Or you can run with 1,000, but you can't carry 2 people on your back. I couldn't carry 1 on my back. It depends on how big they are. So my goal is to make money with people, not off people. And that only works if you're selling at a high level yourself. Like the best thing that Andrew Taylor ever did for me, and this is why, if you look at Andrew's organization, it's board member, senior board member, grand poobah board member, like there's all these high ranks. And the reason why that happened is because the best thing he ever did for his team is not need his team. And the other thing I learned with Andrew was it was really easy to trust Andrew because he never tried to make everything okay. Like if I was having a bad day in the field, like he'd call me up, it's like, bro, how's it going? I'm like, dude, I have a bad day in the field. He's like, bummer. Numbers always work out. Later. You know, that's it. It wasn't like a 30-minute conversation about how bad things were. And you know how he was able to get away with that, with these little short conversations, is he got a lot of grace because he was working really hard, and I knew it. And the other thing was he didn't need my overrides because he can make a good living just going out there and protecting families on his own. So when you flip that on its head, and you're like, I'm gonna recruit, I'm gonna turn this thing, I'm gonna make this a pyramid scheme. I'm gonna recruit you. And when you do all that, guess who does anything? Nobody. It's better to have 5 agents that are making a strong living than it is to have 35 people that don't do anything but come to the meetings. Does that make sense? So, all right, so warm market recruiting. The other thing that I want to share with you guys about warm market recruiting is, what was that noise? That freaked me out. It's okay. I have ADD. I got to start over. So my name is Trey. I'm just teasing. So the other thing I was going to tell you guys is it's the trick to this business is doing the business with people. Like, how many people are afraid to dial? Okay. The key to dialing the phone is get around other people that are dialing the phone. Like, I wouldn't dial the phone if I didn't dial it in front of somebody else. Like, when we started putting these Facebook Lives on where you go on and dial, the only reason why I did that is because I wouldn't dial without doing that. So I realized what my weaknesses were, and what I try to do is put structure in place to overcome those weaknesses. And that comes from, like, accountability and understanding that you're not perfect and it's okay to be the way you are. But you don't have to stay that way. So I did a lot of mind tricks with myself. If I hired, what's your first name? If I hired Esmeralda, if I recruited Esmeralda, and I'm dialing on Thursdays, then my goal is to get Esmeralda, Purification, first name? Heidi. Like, they're all new, right? My goal is to get them there Thursday and dial with them. And sometimes the best thing that could happen is you actually do bad. Like, the first time I ever dialed with Family First Life, I show up to the office. Paul McLean shows up, sweaty. He ran like 6 miles. It's like 8 o'clock. He's fired up. He's like, bro, I'm fired up. It's good to meet you, bro. How you doing? I'm like, I'm doing good. He's like, I'm about to go in here and knock this out and book 22 appointments in 17 minutes. I'm like, well, this is great. So he goes in there, and I had a stack of leads. He had a stack of leads. I booked like 16 appointments, and Paul only booked 2. And it was probably the worst that he's ever been on the phone ever in the history of FFL. And so he's sitting in the office. He's sweating. He's like, what am I doing wrong? Did you hear my phone script? What do you think? I'm like, dude, I just started. Like, what do you think? You know, like I think you just need to keep dialing. He said, that's great advice. I need to keep dialing. So he got to about 1 o'clock, and between 1 and 3, he booked like 15 appointments. And he's like, this is the longest I've had to dial in a long time. I'm like, yeah, I know. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, I think he did that on purpose. He just wanted me to feel like I was doing really good. But what that did for me is made me realize that Paul McLean, who's the best salesperson in the history of FFL, in my opinion, is human too. And me being in that environment showed me that. Like, when you guys see people, let me ask you this. When you think, Esmeralda, how long have you been with us? 6, 7 months. So looking back, when you first started, if you were to fast forward 3 months, and you were able to look back and say, hey, if I could look back and say this thing happened, and this thing happened, and that would have made me wildly successful in the first 90 days, what would that have looked like for you? Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. A lot quicker. Well, that makes total sense. And what's interesting about this business is people way underestimate what they can accomplish in a year or two, and they way overestimate what they can accomplish in a week or two. And because of social media, what happens when you're new is you're comparing yourself to everybody else's highlight reel, right? So you don't realize that Esmeralda went through that until I talked to her, because you're just seeing numbers and how many families helped and all these other things. Does that make sense? So the other thing I realized is that when you recruit people in the business, you want to recruit people that you actually want to spend time with. See, when you first start out, people think FFL has this system, and this system's going to do all the work for me. That's what people think. Like, I'm just going to throw people up against the wall, and I don't know if everybody thinks that, but some people think that. And I'm going to see what sticks. The reality is you need to hire people or recruit people in the business that you genuinely enjoy working with, so that if 3 days in, Esmeralda calls me, I actually want to talk to her. A big red flag in the business is when Purification would recruit somebody, and then the third time that person calls, Purification is going, oh, God, it's Bob again. Like, if that's the problem, you shouldn't have recruited Bob. The biggest waste of time is spending your time with the wrong people. But if you can find 10 people that you enjoy working with, and y'all are out there doing it together, and it's not I and me, but it's us and we, right? How many people have ever worked, and I don't mean at FFL, but you've ever worked with somebody where it's all about them, it's all about them, it's all about them? How many people enjoy that? I appreciate your honesty. We've all experienced that, though. Another big lesson I learned from Andrew Taylor, and this only happened one time. I can only think of this one time out of all the conversations with Andrew. Every time I talked with Andrew, it was about me. It was about me killing it. It was about me doing better. It was about me improving my financial situation and me helping my family and me helping more families and me getting to a certain level. He never talked about his goals with me. He only talked about my goals with him. Does that make sense? And one time, he did it so regularly that way that the one time I caught him slipping, he was in a bad mood or whatever, and I said this, this, and this, and he goes, well, I'm going to da-da-da and da-da-da and da-da-da. And Nicole goes, babe. And he goes, but you're going to kill it too. and he changed it back and put the focus on me. See, a lot of times what repels people when you recruit them is you're talking way too much about your goals and not about their goals. Like Esmeralda, you've been in business for 7 months. Are you where you want to be? Okay. So going from where you are now to where you want to be, what do you think needs to change? Mm-hmm.
Get complacent, and everybody talks about that. You make a little money here and there or whatever, pay your bills and you chill, and the reality is, like, if you really, like, put your head down and go to work for 3 years, I mean, everybody says it, at least everybody that's like a board member and so forth, like, you'll be so much more ahead, like.
And so when you get so much more ahead, what is that going to mean for you and your family?
It's a game changer.
How so?
I mean, you can do things that you thought would take forever, things that you may have thought were not going to be possible for, X amount of years or whatever it may be. So,
So what's prevented you from making those changes in the past?
like I said, not taking the opportunity for what it really is. And I guess not being disciplined enough. And I mean, you know,
You want to know what I think? I think you're awesome. And I think you have everything you need to have. I think you're more than disciplined enough. Here's the reality. Consistency is a myth. You're consistently doing something. You're just not consistently doing the things getting you closer to where you want to go. So you know what those things are, right? So if I recruited you and I saw you not doing those things, what would you expect from me? That's why warm market works. Does that make sense? You can't do that with a stranger. All right. Thanks for your time.